Hey class, welcome to our video session. Today we're going to talk about the power of a personal brand. And I mentioned this in our class last week about how a lot of what we're going to learn is parallel. So what applies to marketing and branding also applies to you being a student and how you stand out from the crowd. Most companies are trying to build products and services so that they are differentiated between their competitors and others who enter the market. And it's the same with you as a student. You are competing with each other. I've mentioned this before in class. You're also competing with every student everywhere that wants to work in the Bay Area or work at a tech company or work in fashion. The demand for jobs right now is at a minimum, right? There's an economic downturn, so there are more candidates than there are jobs. And so you as a student need to do everything in your power to differentiate. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Okay. So I'm testing the subtitles, so hopefully it's working. And please let me know if it isn't. I will be posting this video on YouTube, and I would love your feedback on it next week in class. Okay. All right. So let's get started. Now, we have all heard about this concept of it's not what you know, it's who you know. In fact, there are tons of books out there that talk about this. Here's just a few. One that I've read. I read the book by Janine Garner. It's who you know, and it really does revolve around this idea of your network and your net worth. And so you could be the most experienced engineer, but if you don't know a hiring manager or you don't have a contact at a company, you might not have an opportunity to even interview. And so I do believe this at a very high level. I believe this statement, right? Which is, it's not what you know, it's who you know. But I think it's bigger than that. I think it's more important than that, because there are a lot of people that I know, right? I know people I know the CEO of, Microsoft. I don't know him personally, but I know who he is. I know Elon Musk, right? But I don't know him personally. Now, the question that we need to ask ourselves is, who knows you? Okay. And that's really what this entire class, or this, at least the beginning stages of this class, is built, so that you can build a brand that is differentiated, so that when people see your name or when you go to an interview, they know who you are. Now, it doesn't mean you have to be famous or a creator or an influencer. It just means that you have to roll up your sleeves and do everything in your power to get that interview, to get that internship, and walk in that door with confidence. Okay. So it's not who you know, it's who knows you. Because I know a lot of people that don't know me. And quite frankly, there are a lot of people who know me that I don't know either. So it's a two-way street. But you as the students who are just entering into the workplace you're starting at ground zero, right? You don't have a large network. Maybe you know a few people at San Jose State, and now is your opportunity. I mean, most of you are juniors and seniors. You should be building your network and preparing yourself so that when you walk into an interview, or when you submit a form on LinkedIn to apply for a job, there are people who know your name, right? So let's talk about how to do that. Now, there's a couple of things that you can do that we're going to talk through in this next 30 minutes or so. The first one is optimizing your digital profile. Now, in this class, we're going to talk about specifically LinkedIn. But, as TikTok has gained prominence and Instagram, those are also channels that you can use, and you're probably already doing so and posting more personal things. On LinkedIn, it's about business. It's about who you are. It's about what you know. And it's really about establishing a point of view. Okay. So when you optimize your LinkedIn profiles, you are going to be writing the about section. You're going to write about your internships and the job responsibilities you've had at previous companies or jobs. You're also going to get an opportunity to write your narrative. Now, sometimes that's referred to as a personal brand statement. I like to call it your narrative. It really answers 3 questions, and you need to know this. I mentioned this last week. A narrative answers who you are, what you stand for, and why should people care. And that is the same concept, not just for a personal brand, but also for a business, a brand, a campaign. If you answer those three questions succinctly, and concisely, you can memorize it. It'll be memorable for other people. And, people are going to remember who you are, just as they do products and services that they buy. Now, also, we're going to talk about content, right? Sharing your content, talking about it, even if people don't agree. Okay. Now, the great news about being a student is that people are forgiving, right? You may say something on LinkedIn that might not make complete sense, or that may not align with a broader point of view from other business people. And that's okay, right? You have to start somewhere. You have to have a perspective on whatever it is you're talking about. So you need to just be okay with that, right? Not everybody's going to agree. You got to get over it. Repetition is critical. Okay. It takes 3 to 5 times before a campaign or a message breaks through and people start to believe. It's the same thing with building your personal brand. You have to drive repetition through what you say in your posts, on your LinkedIn profile, other platforms, because the more people see who you are and what you stand for, the more that they will understand it and potentially align with it. And that is one way to build your brand. Don't forget the written word, okay? So we live in an era where we record videos and we do TikToks and stories and reels. The written word is still important, right? Now, it may not make you rich. For those of you who are trying to be a journalist, having strong written communication skills goes a very long way, externally and internally. So don't forget the written word, and do the unexpected. Do things that you wouldn't think other students in your similar situation are going to do. Let me give you a quick example. A couple semesters ago, I had a student come up to me and said, "Professor, can you look at my resume and my cover letter?" And I looked at the cover letter and I was like, "What are you going to do with this?" And she responded and said, "Well, there's a career fair and I wanted to hand them out." And I said, "Well, why don't you do something different? Why don't you, study the brands or companies that are going to be at this career fair? Do a little bit of research, record a video as to why you want to work for that company, and put it on a little a memory stick and include your resume and your cover letter that way." And she spent a couple dollars to get the memory stick. She recorded it. She recorded 3 videos, one for each company that she was interested in, and she handed them out. I think she's working at one of those now. That is what I mean by doing the unexpected. She was the only student at this entire career fair that did that. That is how you stand out from everybody else. It's things like that differentiate you, and that is going to get you and land you that first job. Okay. Now, when it comes to optimizing your LinkedIn profile, let's look at a few things you don't want to do. Okay, these are 2 screenshots of 2 students. These are real screenshots from a couple of years ago. Both of these students went to San Diego. Well, the student on the left went to Santa Clara University. The student on the right went to San Diego State. Now, one thing you'll notice is that they don't have a profile photo. Now, they probably do, but they also have their privacy settings turned on, so that because we're not connected, if you see I'm not connected to them, that means that I'm not going to be able to see their profile. Now, we're going to talk about LinkedIn in a few weeks and talk about how you need to be accessible to everybody, hiring managers, recruiters. These 2 students are not accessible. I can't see them. It's hard for me to contact them. And if you watch my mouse, you'll see marketing student at Santa Clara University. There's probably 50,000 other students who have the same exact headline here. This one has marketing student at San Diego State University, future doctor of chiropractic. Okay. A little bit more compelling, right? A little bit more aspirational. And then the student on the left doesn't have an about section, right? She jumps right into, right into what they do at Santa Clara University. On the right, there's a little about section. This is where you are going to write your narrative, right? It's your chance to sell yourself, okay? So do less of this. These are not good profiles. This profile is Jennifer Zuazo, and she actually works for me at Zeno, and she was a grad student a couple years ago, and she really, for every lecture, she was taking notes, and she really took it to heart, this idea of optimizing her LinkedIn profile, and publishing content. So let me just walk through this. Notice the photo, right? It's very personable. I don't know if this is recent because I took this screenshot about a year ago, but it's recent. But it's not a professional Photoshop, but it's also not a bathroom selfie. So this is a good shot. She also has, a nice little background here with all of her social handles. You can create that in Canva very easily. Okay. She's a graduate student at San Jose State, digital marketing. I remember talking to her about her headline and wanting her to make it a little bit more compelling. It's okay. Notice here she talks about who she is. She mentions her skills. She talks about her transferable skills in combination with her outgoing personality, making her a powerful marketer. She is telling a story in this about section. This is her chant. This is her narrative. Okay. Notice up here in the upper section, these are posts that she's posted. Notice 19 likes, 1 comment, 25 likes, 5 comments. These are at the beginning of the semester. She was getting close to 100 engagements per post towards the end of the semester. So do more of this. We're going to talk about more of this in person. This is the way to build your brand, starting with LinkedIn. Now, perfecting the gift of gab. You are all Gen Z. You have no idea what I mean by this, most likely. The gift of gab is the person who can tell a story. He's like the cousin you know, or a friend that you have that goes to a wedding or goes to an event, and he's always surrounded by people, always telling stories. People are laughing. He's compelling, he tells compelling stories, even if they aren't true. He's just a good story. He or she's a good storyteller. If you've ever seen the movie Boiler Room with Vin Diesel, they're selling stocks. And there's a scene where this one rookie tries to sell this guy on a mutual fund, and he just sucks at it. And then Vin Diesel's like, let me show you how it's done. And he just slays this conversation and ends up selling a multi-million-dollar deal over the phone. That is the gift of gab. If you've ever walked onto a car lot, there are good salespeople and there are bad salespeople. You can spot the good ones, right? They're not too intrusive, but they have the gift of gab. They can talk. They can influence. Okay. They can persuade people. Okay. So now I want you to think about this book. I'm not going to play this video, but this is a video by Simon Sinek. He actually talks about how Apple has, and maybe I'll just link to it in the video and just add it into this video, or just link to it as part of the homework. But he talks about how Apple tells stories and how they do it differently from their competitors. And that's why they're so successful. Okay. So now that example is a brand example, but again, it's very applicable to who you are as a student and how you can tell stories. Okay. So here's a quick snapshot of what that looks like. I'm not going to play the whole thing, but I will link to it. Okay. Now, I want you to get into the practice of thinking in headlines. Okay, what do I mean by that? What is a headline? If you think about your traditional newsroom or the New York Times or CNN, where they would have these editors who would spend hours laying out the newspaper and writing headlines that are going to compel people to, as they're walking down the street of New York or San Francisco, they see a paper and they say, oh my God, what is that? And they buy it. If you go to a grocery store and look at the Inquirer or People magazine or some of these other random magazines, those are all written in a way to capture your attention so that you are compelled to buy it. Headlines can be anything. Headlines can be a caption on Instagram. Headlines could be an email subject line. A headline can be a blog post or an article title or a press release. Headlines can be some type of slogan on a piece of creative for a campaign. I'm going to show you examples there in a second. So there is an art and science to thinking in headlines. Okay. Even in presentations, if you're doing Google Slides or PowerPoint, the headline of a slide, it's a headline. It's meant to tell a story. We're going to talk about this concept called the setup and the payoff, right? It's very common in Hollywood when they're filming movies or sitcoms, and they have these little miniature stories within a larger story. The setup and the payoff is meant to kind of provide these short stories within a larger context, and we're going to talk about that as well. So here's some examples of what that looks like. Okay. Now, again, this is more maybe clickbait or if you're not familiar with clickbait, I'll explain that in class. But the 10 best ways to get rich without working a 9 to 5. Okay, the 101 best ways to get ripped without a gym membership. Now notice they're very descriptive. You can read the headline and already get an understanding of what the content will be. Now, as a marketer, you're going to have to deliver on that, right? If you're writing a blog post or you have a campaign and you're using this type of language, if you're linking to a microsite or you're linking to a video, that video better answer the question, right? Or better provide value or the payoff of what your headline is saying, okay? Here's some other examples. You're running out of time. Here's how to avoid missing out. So you got the FOMO, approach. We need to talk about AI. It's a game changer. We need to talk about the elephant in the room. It's hurting you. You'll be sorry if you miss this guide to writing the best headlines, okay? These are all ways to kind of, again, capture the attention of users so they click on a link or they click on an ad or they open the newspaper or they see a shared link on LinkedIn or Facebook or Twitter or whatever, and they see the headline and it compels them to take action and to click, okay? Let me give you some examples of what that looks like from kind of an ad standpoint. So if you look at up here, if you watch my mouse again, these are email subject lines, okay? So notice this one here, $10,000 on my first webinar, question mark? Yes, please. Now, if I'm an entrepreneur, I'm trying to make some extra coin, this is something that I might be compelled to watch or to open, right? That is an email subject line, okay? When I say headline, I also mean email subject line, okay? So this next example down here is an ad that I saw years ago, and it's kind of changed, and I'm going to talk about this in class. But if for all the fellows in class, I don't know if you grew up wanting to be a ninja, but I wanted to be a ninja my entire life. I mean, I still do. And what's interesting about this ad is the first kind of, frame is it's just not just safe, ninja safe, right? And then the next one is it's like you never left. Okay, so this is an alarm company. And if you know what a ninja can do, ninjas can break through and like crawl through cracks on walls, right? To get through and kill someone or, kidnap someone. So interesting messaging as it relates to, these are headlines. Now it's a slogan, it's ad creative, right? But it's the same concept. It's a headline. If you look down here, here's some B2B examples on Forrester. Here's one that says Forrester just released their 2020 Megatrends report. Read it today. And down here you have creative, right? And you have, a call to action that says download the ebook, right? Not the greatest example, but again, you can start to understand that even on LinkedIn or Facebook, you write copy that is meant to drive action. Here's REI, trust us. After all those miles, your backpack could use a wash. Then they have a picture of a dirty backpack, right? The lead up is the dirty backpack. When you scroll through your feed, I'm going to notice this dirty backpack. I'm going to be like, that's interesting. I love backpacking. And then I'm going to read the post copy and it says, trust us. After all those miles, your backpack could use a wash. That's the payoff. I'm going to be interested. I'm going to click through and maybe buy the backpack. Over here, you have an example from Target. Hope this email finds you well. Where the email finds me. Okay, so just interesting concept as it relates to, storytelling. And I think this is a Twitter example. Okay, so again, the concept of writing short, concise headlines is not just meant for writing blog posts or articles. It's meant for any type of outbound marketing communications that you're focused on, and it's meant to drive some type of action. Now, we're going to talk about storytelling, right? Storytelling always wins. We talked about this last week. I love watching the Sons of Anarchy. If you've never seen Sons of Anarchy, I highly, highly, highly recommend you watch the Sons of Anarchy because the stories are great, and each, you can't just watch one episode in the middle of season 2. You have to watch it from the beginning because each episode builds off the next one. And you connect with the characters, right? They're, you start to feel, compassion for them and relate to them. That is the whole point. There are screenwriters and directors and producers that understand that how stories affect the brain. Okay, when we watch a campaign or we see a movie and you hear the music and the man saves the woman, or the man saves the daughter, or the bad guy gets caught, or the bad guy goes to jail, or he gets killed, or the wrongfully convicted person in jail gets released, that triggers an emotion in our brain. Okay, it affects our cortex activity. It provides dopamine to the brain, and those are things that drive relationships, and those are the things that drive memorable experiences. That's why we remember things like "Nationwide is on your side," right? Things like that. Those are things that we tend to remember, right? Because we watch the video, we read the paper, we read the caption, whatever it is, and we connect with it. So storytelling always wins because it triggers an emotion, and it has an effect on our ability to understand and recall the content or the story. Now, this is a concept called, it was actually called the Cone of Learning by Edgar J. Cone. That's what it is. Okay. So he was an educator in the 1900s, and he was studying these kindergartner or elementary school students and how they recalled information. And he found out that, and through research, years of research, that after 2 weeks, students at the time only remembered 10% of what they read, and 20% of what they hear, 30% of what they see, 50% of what they see and hear, and then 90% of what they do. Okay, so think about this in the context of today. Okay, now, and let's not worry about elementary school students. Let's talk about consumers. Okay, so if consumers only remember 10% of what they read, then that means from a marketing standpoint, you need to do more than just write content, right? You need to think about writing, launching a podcast, right? If you look at my mouse, I put examples here. You have Audible, which is a podcast platform. You have Clubhouse, which is a social audio platform. 30% of what you see, right? YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn. 50% of what you see and hear, TikTok, Snapchat, and Instagram. And then 90% of what you do. So I also put in opportunities to measure. But this is a great example of why storytelling is important, not just through written word, not just through a video or an ad on a radio station. It has to be integrated, right? It has to, if consumers are all over the place, we talked about peso last week a little bit, this is peso, right? This is a lot of information. So the longer that as you're selling products and services, consumers are like kind of navigating the world, consuming content. You have to tell stories that not just are in different channels, but also different content types, right? So the content types are here: long form written content, video, audio, a combination of both. 90% of what people do is more about like creator engagement or, brand ambassador programs, things like that. And this is how you distribute that content across paid media, earned media, shared media, and owned media. And these are the things that we're going to talk about in class. The last thing I want to talk about is embrace data even if you suck at math. I guarantee you that if you learn and understand data, you don't have to be a data scientist. You don't even have to know algebra, okay? But if you understand data and learn how to apply it to then create an insight or a recommendation, you will be light years ahead of everybody else. I promise you. It took me almost 17 years to get this. And ever since I've embraced data and have learned how to make big data small and actionable, my career, my salary has almost tripled. And my career has taken off. Okay, so here's an example of just some measurement dashboards on how you are ways to kind of measure content and earn media and all media actually. So that's what I want you to take away from this class. Okay, please watch this whole video, save the video, go back and refer to the video, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to this video, and be sure to click the notifications button so that you will be notified when I release a new video. And I'm just kidding. That's what I used to say in my other videos. But anyway, Remember, your brand is defining who you are. It's answering the question of who you are, what you stand for, and why should anyone care. Okay. So thank you. I look forward to seeing you guys next week, and you will get the homework assignment in Canvas, and let me know if you have any questions. All right. Have a great week. Talk to you soon. Bye.